all over the place. We based on Australian models, which was the first ecotourism certification scheme, and on the Swedish, which was the first in the Northern Hemisphere. The certification is a third-party certification, which means that we have evaluators in the field checking, and after this there is a commission which is independent or half independent from our association. We have in the commission member which are not belonging to our association. We certify accommodation and programs tours, which are for more than a day. You need to have an overnight, and the accommodation not more than 25 rooms. We have more than 100 certificates awarded throughout this period, and the validity is 1 year and a half or 3 years, depending on the criteria that they fulfill. At this moment, we have valid probably about 20, 30 because they expire, and we keep going on and keep going back and re-evaluating some of them. It's not a business in itself. It is part of a larger scheme that we are using. So the certification scheme, if it is let alone, will not financially survive. So we are supporting it at this moment. So it's not a self-supporting. However, we are putting this scheme into a larger series of tools that we are using, and part of the cost we are covering. We have I give you another example. So we develop together with Zenit, which it's a separate entity, a map collection. And this map collections basically covers the interested area, the ecotourism destination that I'll just mention later. And this is a tool in order as well to promote those certification schemes. So when we designed this map together with Zenit Maps, on the back of the map are only the certified products and so on. So again, it is part of this puzzle that we are using. So we integrate certification services, and we look at the regions that we work with. We developed this concept of ecotourist destinations. As you can see, it is the mixture between a protected area plus the communities, which could be surrounding the protected area or could be inside of a protected area if it's a natural park or a Natura 2000 site. And the idea is that they adopt a responsible and integrated local policy based on this concept of ecotourism. We were able to launch it at the European level in 2013, when we hosted the European Ecotourism Conference. So there is this concept somehow approved by the major association, even by the Europark Federation. We tried since then to find additional resources to work with this concept. Currently, we applied to a European project, but we don't have yet the results. I'm not going to talk more about the European movement in ecotourism, but we are involved in this one as well. What we did, because I'm talking about ecotourism destination, we built under the National Tourist Authority, under the ministry, we developed this a separate set of criteria, separate from what I've just mentioned before with Eco-Romania. So using GSTC, Global Sustainable Tourist Council criteria, and European Ecotourism Labeling Standard, which is a product of 3 European projects one after the other. There is at this moment EETLS does not have an entity to run it, but they are available. So we developed them, we adapted it to Romania, so we ended up with a certification scheme. These are the network of destinations that we have been working in the last 10 years. What you can see with red are those that are officially recognized by the Tourism Ministry according to the scheme that I just mentioned before. And sure, this is the top of the iceberg, because we start this to advocate for ecotourism at the highest national level back in 2009, when was the National Research Institute in Tourism developing an ecotourism strategy. After this, throughout all these years, we had a criteria development based on the interministerial working group. We have this European conference hosted in Romania, and the ministry started to certify these destinations. The first to 2014, another in 2016. And what is interesting is that even that it took incredibly long, with two periods of updating last year, 2019, so after 10 years, but we succeeded, actually the ministry succeeded to put the strategy into a legal framework in order to really, for us, was very important, because we were explicitly in a legal binding document. We succeeded to put this concept of ecotourism destination. So according to the Romanian legislation, at this moment, we have clearly defined the resorts and the ecotourism destination as a confined tourist area. In the meantime, we look for funding. So we have a long-term partnership already in the 6th year with Romania American Foundation, plus we use quite efficiently the Norwegian and the Swedish funds that were available in Romania throughout this period. So these are the destinations, the 7 destinations that we've been intensively working, and we are still coordinating them for another 2-3 years, having a minimum financial resources. So we built in each destination a DMO, a destination management unit, I would say, and with 2 people full-time employed that are running the show on daily basis. They are doing the destination management. So, and this is the evolution of some figures. What you have to be aware is that the number of guest houses in the whole network here, it's increasing, but it's not because it's there are new guest houses. Is because the network is receiving new members that are already having a guest house in the destination. So we select somehow out of the large number of guest houses, we select those that are closer to the responsible tourists. They have a good feeling about this. So in each of the destination, we have a network of guest houses. As you can see, number of tourists is increasing, but it's increasing as well, not only because we do the marketing, but there are more guest houses in the network. So we add as well their clients. So we are not as efficient as you might believe, seeing this trend here increasing. But we are positioning all those destinations on the Romanian international market. And we look quite seriously of these figures, overnight and average stay, because for us, these are the indicators where the destination is successfully and where the ecotourism actually comes into place, because we want to make the most out of the money spent of a tourist. we don't want high volume, we want low volume, but with an average of stay that is beyond 2. So we are doing well at this moment. So we have, as you can see, between 2.4 and 2.3, this is an average over a year. And the occupancy rate, again, for a destination, it's increasing, which for us, it's a good sign. This is something that shows that there is not a high seasonality, that there are tourists as well in the low season there. So the occupancy rate is for us an indicator. So we want to stay actually beyond 27%. So in 2019, you see that we are almost there. The best year seems up to now that was 2018. These figures are coming from the national statistics. Sure, they are a bit not exact one, because there is still quite a lot of the unreported, the number of tourists. So they can't, the National Statistic Institute cannot capture actually the whole volume of tourists. However, I put it here just showing that we are above the national figure. So we have an average stay beyond 2, and which is coming from the national average, and an occupancy rate 26, where it's 23. Here, sure, they did not count ecotourism because they don't have this knowledge of how to count ecotourism, but I took those type of accommodation like villas, guest houses, or agrotourism, which are very close to actually what we are calling ecotourism. We work with destinations that mainly are in the Carpathian mountain. We work intensively with the protected area in terms of interpretation, infrastructure, going up even up to creating concept and developing visitor center, not the building, but the exhibition. This is just to give you an example of the magnitude of such a network in one of destinations, 22. In the whole destination, probably there are about 100, above 100 guest houses. So we have 22 out of them. This is a destination with a very good average of stay, 3.4, but with a low occupancy rate. And we work hard as well to understand the profile of the destination. So we develop an evaluation based on a 1 year round survey with visitors. So we have the profile of each of the 7 destinations. So I just give you an example from each destination. For example, in Țara Dornelor, we counted the length of stay. So which for us, it's extremely good in this case. We have 5 nights or more, 35% out of, so it's extremely well. In another destination, Țara Hațegului, Retezat, we looked for the main purpose. I mean, we look in each, these are just samples from each destination to show you how technically we deal with the subject, but sure, each destination has a large profile questionnaire. So here we discovered actually that the main attraction is the visitor center of the Geopark and hiking in the national park in Retezat. We were surprised that the Geopark, which is a relatively new establishment, succeeded to, in a relatively short period, to compete with the national park, Retezat. Another area at the center of Maramureș, we discover here actually that there are a lot of Romanian working abroad that visit this area. In Transylvanian Highlands, which is the Saxon German speaking part of Romania, we discover, for example, that the income of tourists is very high for this area, so we have a lot of foreigners. In another area, we discover the structure of the group and that the families with children are important, for example, here, and they have a lot of caves, and the tourists dealing with caves is very important, and we redefine the tourist product for them. Objectives for 2023, we do have, as you see, so we work quite systematically with this network of destinations, and we try to reach, I'll not go into detail now, but high average of stay and an occupancy rate, again high, and above all, sure, we like to strengthen Romania's image as an ecotourist destination using this network of destination. The DMO development, as you mentioned, I just show you the results, but we do this monitoring system, and we after this we come back to the resources that we have, and we try to optimize them because they are limited, and to do our best and to be competitive on the international market with this destination. Besides working directly with the small scale, we realized that in terms of promoting Romania as an ecotourist destination, still we have to deal with the large scale destinations. So with the help of DBU, it's a German foundation, we're able to run another activity, a project using these two regions from Romania. This is Oradea, it's a city and a county, Sibiu. And we screened the sustainable certification scheme for them. And now we are in a partnership with the local association, the DMOs, in order to enter into the first phase of evaluation with green destination certification scheme. We want even this one to be part of our activity. However, we keep clear that ecotourism is not about the large scale, but we need partner even from the high volume or other type of cities in order to be able to promote more sustainability and overall Romania is an ecotourist destination. So thank you very much. These are the funders that we have been using. As you can see, unfortunately we haven't been using European money directly, just through consultancy. We do consultancy as well. And more or less, this is the short version of more than 10 years work in Romania based on this subject. Thank you very much. If there are questions, we can take some of them.
Thank you, Andrei. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. There are at least two questions, and I'm going straight ahead. I have a question. If the certification is more important for foreign tourists or domestics?
Indeed, if it is for foreign tourists, they are more aware than the Romanian one. However, nobody is coming just because a certification. So certification in itself is an added value to a product and depends a lot on the business if they are able to position themselves different using the certification scheme. So if they are using the certification logo in a clever way, they can take more benefits. By just putting a logo on a website or on a brochure does not change a lot in terms of the volume. Definitely the Western European, they are much more into this issue, and we are trying now as well to open the mind of the domestic market in terms of all this. But when we are talking about the destination in itself, this is more a technical tool for us. Yes, so it's not it's not a marketing directly. So you need to work a lot to get from a certification to the marketing.
Okay, thank you. Another question is that, could you explain how the DMOs are financed? You mentioned shortly,
yes.
But can you explain more?
Yeah, with DMOs in Romania now, it's a hot potato. The previous government tried to establish a definition by law for DMOs, and the definition is not operational at this moment because of sort of wrong approach. In theory, I would say in practice at this moment, they are financed through project and mainly through this opportunity that we have, the Romanian American Foundation. Some of the 7 ones are running their own sort of businesses. One to establish the tour operators because there is none in the region. So at least for a couple of years, they can take over this packaging of products. So they do some economical activities, and another DMO, they have the caves in their administration. So they run the caves on a separate team. So they take some of the income that they generate from the caves and they put it back in the DMO. There are souvenirs as well that they run, but basically this money are little. From souvenirs and other economical activities, so project at this moment. Normally they should be funded through a fee that comes from the visitors. This scheme has been discussed a lot, but probably in the ecotourism destination does not cover the needs. So even if there will be this fee enforced, which is like an overnight fee for clients, for tourists, in the cities would be enough, in the big city destinations, but for this type of destination, even that one probably will not be sufficient. At this moment, we are running through projects, the DMOs.
Thanks. And if you have still a few minutes, or at least 1 minute,
yes,
sure. Good question. What is your approach for increasing the visitors' average length of stay?
That's a week. An answer that I should talk over a week session. This is to increase the length of the stay, yes, the average. What was the question?
To increase the length of the season, let's say, or how to enlarge the season.
Yeah. Basically, there is a lot to be done in terms of product development. So what type of products and how you develop the product in order to not accelerate the tourists. One of our biggest mistake, either as a client, as a tourist, or as a developer, is to accelerate that we want to make it fast. We live in this fast food, fast transport world, fast communication. So the whole challenge is how to slow down, how to make people take a vacation and not take a weekend. This is the challenge. Sure, it's nothing wrong to come for 2 nights. It's a bit wrong to come for 1 night, we are saying. So come for at least for 2 nights. So the whole product is designed in the way that the offer should be from 2 nights on. Even we work with event maker from the destination, and we do the event in order to make people come at least for 2 nights. This is one issue. The other one is how you promote the destination. So what do you want? What do we want from our clients to understand? If the destination is very accessible and the product is not attractive enough, sure the people will come and go, and they might not even spend the night there. So the challenge is how to develop a product and to develop the marketing, the image of the destination in order to be extremely attractive. One of the best examples in Europe that I found is Neusiedler, the national park in Austria at the border with Hungary. They are less than about an hour from Vienna, or even less than an hour, I think. And they moved from a weekend destination to a holiday destination in the last 20 years. Being very close to Vienna, but still developing the product in the way that people now, even from Vienna, they take a vacation in this national park area. So that's what we are trying to do. Now, in terms of seasonality, to not have dead seasons, again, ecotourism, it's about nature. Nature is nice, and usually if you look carefully, there are products and attractions which are in off-season. The birds are coming in off-season for the classical destinations. The wildlife is more present for watching even in the winter if you want to do the tracking. So again, is how to come up with attractions and even events in this case, which are not based on the main season, to enlarge the season of the destination in order for sure to make this the seasonality as large as possible. So instead of having three people, instead of having 30 people for a night, which is 30 bed nights, we would prefer to have 3 people staying 10 days, which is by the end is the same number of bed nights, but with a larger economical impact, positive impact, and with a less distressing social and cultural issue. Yes. Thank you very much. If there are more questions.
And we are slowly moving to the other
yes.
presentation. Thank you again, and have a nice day.
I'm welcome. I wish you good luck in Slovakia. I've been there. It's a beautiful country, and I hope I will come back one day.
Okay, yes. You are welcome anytime.
Yes, good luck, and I hope to have Slovakian Ecotourism Association partner as soon as possible. Yes.
Okay, I definitely will get in touch soon.
Okay.
Thank you again. Bye bye.
Okay, bye.
So, do you hear me? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Nina. This is Diana. And we're 2 sustainable tourism consultants that have been conducting a handbook for the last half of 2019 and called...
One moment.
Yeah.
We are getting there.
Best practices for developing ecotourism in support of national parks in Slovakia. And we have done this in the request of AVIS. And this is supposed to be a practical handbook for stakeholders in Slovakia. We're also gonna present the current situation of ecotourism in times of COVID-19.
So just a few words about LT&C as an organization, because some of you might have not heard about LT&C yet. So we are a membership organization, an international NGO based in Norway, but with a global membership from conservation professionals to ecotourism professionals, from public sector, private sector. So really a big mix of individuals and organizations that are passionate about nature and conservation. And one of the key areas of LT&C's work is that we profile so-called LT&C examples. So in total, at the moment, we have 41 of these examples around the world. And each one of them shows in a way how ecotourism is through finance, education, or political support, encouraging or supporting conservation. So these examples, to some extent, were also featured in the handbook, which Nina is going to explain now.
So our presentation agenda. The next slide is going to be an overview of key messages from the handbook, chapter by chapter, and Diana is going to tell you about the effects of COVID on ecotourism and the emergence of new trends due to that, challenges, but also new opportunities. So yeah, we're going to go through the key messages from the handbook chapter by chapter, key outcomes and recommendations for Slovakia, but we're not going to go too much into detail. If you want to know more about the examples that we listed, please read the handbook, which is going to be on the AVIS website in English next week, and then in Slovak in like about 2 weeks. And if you want, we can also send it to you by email. Yeah, our aim and methodology. Our aim for the handbook was to present best practice examples of ecotourism and conservation in key areas of concern that are relevant to Slovakia, provide practical testimonies and experience that can be projected on the Slovak environment, and highlight approaches, tools, and recommendations for Slovakia in general. Our methodology was some desktop research to find best suitable examples, members or others for the context, and other data, facts and figures. And most importantly, conduct qualitative interviews that we've done with 11 key LT&C members, partners, and yeah, some others that we thought are relevant. Yeah, so we supported the AVIS project with the methodology was based on the request from AVIS to have practical guidelines, inspiration for the Slovak ecotourism stakeholders. Yeah, so for the base of this research, we've gone on a trip last year to Poloniny, the Low Tatras and High Tatras, guided by AVIS and yeah, especially Tomasz. Yeah. So the handbook key messages in general, by chapter have been the overall for sustainable tourism, a joint participatory bottom-up approach is the most suitable. Then tourism can be used as a tool for protected area financing, managing income generation for local communities. Then a staged approach to ecotourism development might be a right one as part of a multi-land use approach. Then ecotourism is seen as an integral part of rural development. And so has to highly involve the local community, and careful planning, consideration of sustainability, health and safety standards, and constant monitoring are needed. And most importantly, think outside the box and find ways that provide benefits for all the parties involved. So in chapter 1, we talk about stakeholder engagement for protected area management. And for the interviews we've done, the base for success of the protected area and ecotourism destination is the level of commitment, ownership, and collaboration between the stakeholders involved, proactive and people-centered, proactive and people-centered multi-stakeholder approach with a neutral coordinator to form a management plan has worked well for some destinations. And yeah, tourism must be seen as one, but not the only income source for local populations. So they're not dependent on just one, obviously not just one single industry, which also reduces the pressure on the natural environment, and visitor flow management, which again reduces the pressure on the natural environment, and taking into account the carrying capacity of the area. This is the stakeholder map that we conducted from and adapted from IUCN, and that we think the stakeholders that are involved in Slovakia's protected area-based ecotourism destinations. Yeah, and in chapter 2, we talk about financial mechanisms to support environmental protection. In general, the examples highlight the importance of a multi-land use approach, with ecotourism being a key source for financing a protected area / ecotourism destination. We interviewed someone from Torres del Paine Legacy Fund and how they implemented the fund. They gave us some kind of step-by-step guideline how theirs is working. So if the same wants to be done in Slovakia, the following has been followed. So establish a fund as a third party in benefit of both the private and public sector. Then promote it as an ecotourism public and private sector cooperation. Then survey to prove willingness to pay amongst private sector and tourists. And the private sector and tourist funding needs to adapt an environmental conservation giving culture. And Diana can say a bit more to that.
Yes, so generally conducting willingness to pay surveys in different protected area related destinations. When you look at the research, and I've also been involved in a study recently, but which was in the context of Seychelles in Africa, it is found that very often tourists are very willing to give towards a conservation or an environmental protection fee, but for them it needs to be very clear and transparent where the money goes, and very clear that this money is used for conservation. So having an independent organization that is neither government nor private sector really works in the benefit that tourists then are very happy to give an additional 5, 10, 15 euros, depending really on the destination, of course. But this is a willingness to pay survey is a really good way to survey that that mindset of the customers, and then to find the right adapted structure.
Yeah, and then still talking about financial mechanisms, we consulted a wilderness tourism expert, which recommended also a step-by-step plan when wanting to establish an ecotourism destination. So first he said to test an ecotourism product on a small scale, preferably on an already protected zone. So in case for Polonini National Park, for example, the beach part of the forest being a beach forest area would be, for example, a good zone to test this. Then evaluate your approach and monitor your progress closely, and if needed, adapt your products, and then enlarge the protected area and widen buffer zones and your products. Yeah, and then chapter 3 talks about the tools for ecotourism product development. Some limiting factors are governmental regulations or lack of training of guides, for example. Therefore, strive towards an ecotourism products that are financially successful, of benefit for the protected area and community in question, support conservation, provide jobs for the local people, raise awareness, and funds for environmental protection. Also in this chapter, we highlight the importance of to identify the unique selling proposition of the protected area destination and develop products in line with a specific theme to communicate your identity. Also, we talk about how important it is to involve the local populations, so because they are the drive of the destination, and how important it is to have environmental education, to find pathways to integrate environmental awareness training for local communities as well as for tourists, so they really see the value in the area. Then we talked to an expert on beach, the European Beach Forest Network, that said UNESCO heritage sites are considered high-level tourism destinations, and whereby the UNESCO status can act as a real tourism magnet for protected areas. So the beach forest in Slovakia, for example, shows high potential to do so. A sustainable forestry model is recommended together with the support of local agriculture, so that not just the tourism industry is focused on, but also foresters can be involved. Yeah, and the local people benefit the most from it. Yeah. Then over to Diana.
So the next chapter of the handbook, chapter 4, was looking more in depth at certification. So I'm not going to go into too much detail. We've heard some examples yesterday from Tim from Wyoming, from the Riverwind Foundation, who was talking about the approach that the destination had taken in getting a GSTC accredited certification for their destination. And Andrei was also talking about certification in Romania, which was very interesting. Generally, what can be observed is, of course, that we have a real label jungle when it comes to certification in tourism. So it can be very difficult for destinations or for private businesses or even the tourists to know which label to trust and which one to adapt to their destination. Hence, that's why the Global Sustainable Tourism Council came about, that developed this sort of baseline set of basic sustainable tourism criteria for destinations and for private sector. So working with GSTC criteria and then with those certification schemes that are recognized by the GSTC is a really good way to have a measurable sustainability framework. So we're not saying that every destination should get certified, but the good thing is that many of these criteria are available online, and you can use them in a way to track progress, to have indicators for when you are developing your destination. And then, of course, there are more specific criteria for protected areas, for example, like the European Charter for Sustainable Tourism in Protected Areas. And Ivar from Estonia was mentioning yesterday that his destination in Soma National Park had gone through the process of following this specific set of criteria. So important for when you want to go for a certification process in your destination is strong governance and collaboration across the destination. what has been, what we could find out, or when you observe destinations that have gone through a certification process, many of them say it is a very time-intensive process. So for example, in Portugal, the Azores last year announced their destination certification through the GSTC, and they said it was actually a 2-year progress of getting public and private sector on board together to work along these criteria. So it's really the prerequisite is to have all different destination stakeholders and on board. Something that Tim outlined yesterday also in his presentation, and which we also highlight in the handbook, is the necessity to have an inventory and a baseline assessment. So you can't get certified if you don't know what exactly you have in your destination and where your, let's say, problem areas and positive areas are in terms of environmental, socio-cultural and economic aspects. So that is a very helpful first step, to have this sort of baseline assessment. And then, of course, having key leaders who gradually can sort of convince or gather a bigger crowd as you go along in the process can be very helpful. In terms of visitor services provided by national park and NGOs and cooperation schemes with tourist guides, I'm not going to say too much because we have an expert who is going to do a presentation just after us, Jan from Germany, who's going to talk about ranger services and his experience in this regards. So I think it's best if he explains more, and if you see then some more of the details in our handbook actually. So now coming to the next part of our presentation. When we were writing this handbook, it was so we sort of finished the handbook in December last year, and then everything got kind of postponed and changed due to COVID. So the pandemic is not mentioned in the handbook, but we nevertheless wanted to make sure to address this topic in our presentation and show some of the implications that the pandemic is having on ecotourism destinations around the world, and some of the opportunities that we could observe through our network and exchange with our partners. So, I mean, all of you know that international tourism has literally been dropped by 98% in the month of May of 2020. So knowing that in tourism accounts for approximately 1 in 11 jobs in the world, this is directly putting at risk 100 to 120 million jobs in the tourism industry. More dramatically, of course, is the fact that many of the jobs in tourism are in the informal sector. So especially when you're looking at developing destinations, not all the jobs are, or not all the people working in tourism are formally employed. So they are providing their services and are somehow connected to the tourism value chain, and are now from one day to the next losing their economic existence. So this affects specifically micro and small and medium-sized enterprises, many of them who employ many women and young people. And very importantly, this shutdown of tourism activities, of course, has had a massive effect on many protected areas around the world and the communities that are relying on tourism income for their economic survival. So many of these communities hence don't have the social safety nets and are really struggling due to the pandemic. We have some numbers here before the pandemic about the sort of economic value of the world's protected areas, but also importantly the number of jobs worldwide in wildlife tourism, which is 21.88 million jobs. So knowing that a large part of these jobs are currently at risk, I think is really very, very shocking. If we go to the next slide. So one of the worst aspects of this for the conservation scene is that the pandemic is actually threatening to reverse decades of conservation efforts. And many experts are actually saying that COVID is the symptom of a wider economic or environmental crisis that is happening right now, of humans sort of misusage and threat towards wildlife areas and unsustainable activities in these areas. So generally there is this enormous potential of the ecotourism sector and connected to that, the preservation of biodiversity. At the moment, it seems that 7% of the world tourism actually relates to wildlife tourism, and it is a segment that is growing annually at about 3%. The problem right now that we are having is that many of these areas are difficult to access, and they're even more difficult to access due to the current situation that we have less air travel, less frequent trains, and so on. And then, of course, we have a very weak customer confidence limit, which is really slowing down this recovery in international travel. What we have seen in regards to poaching or illegal activities, so there's no really hard data yet because the data is still being collected. But the Parks publication from May 2020 highlighted that actually there was increased poaching, both subsistence and commercial, and illegal resource extraction in countries such as Cambodia, India, Costa Rica, Southern and Eastern Africa. There was a 10-time increase in illegal logging that was reported in Tunisia during the high time of the Corona lockdown. And there were more cases of illegal extraction of forest resources in the first months of lockdown than in the entire previous year in the country of Nepal. So these are really shocking numbers when you think about it. But there are also some developments and some opportunities, sort of a light at the end of the tunnel that we can see from this effects of the pandemic. So one of them, and we are experiencing it right now, of course, is the digitalization, which it has really sort of forced us to adapt our tourism industry and our way of work to these current times. There has also been an increase in willingness to work together in the tourism sector. So we have seen the birth of new tourism initiatives such as the Future of Tourism, which is a sort of alliance of different private sector, but also tourism organizations that really want to push for a resilient and for a sustainable tourism recovery, where they really say that now is the moment where we should really assess all the wrongdoings that we have been doing in our destinations around the world and to adapt the right approach together. And then the words resilience and regeneration have really appeared. Resilience in the sense because many destinations have had the bitter realization that they are too dependent on tourism and that sort of have put everything on one horse, on major source markets or on specific tourism products. So it has also showed that there needs to be, first of all, a diversification of products, of markets, but also that tourism is not the only solution and not the only way. As Nina was pointing out before, that there should be, especially for protected areas, a sort of multi-land use approach, because that keeps the destinations more resilient. And then, of course, generally in the populations, especially here sort of in the European space, we could see that there was a reappreciation for nature, open space, and wildlife observation. So some data suggests that actually in Sweden, there was a 300% increase in interest for walking and trekking activities. And it is also estimated that global spending on ecotourism will increase at a higher rate than the average industry-wide growth. So this really gives, of course, some positive encouragement for us working in the ecotourism scene. What we could also see that there was a boom in gardening, so people were not traveling so much, so they were reconnecting to nature, to their own spaces, and very importantly to camping. I have some statistics that I found online from the New York Times and from BBC that were saying that some of the online booking platforms for camper vans and for campsites had an up to 400% increase in bookings in the month that were following lockdowns in major European countries. In Germany, the sort of registration of new camper vans increased by 50% in 2020 compared to 2019. And the interesting thing is that many of these bookings or new registrations are also first-time campers. So it really shows that many people are sort of reorienting themselves towards this safer and more individual form of traveling. And then what we've also seen is that there, well, is really a need for innovation and startups. So the UNWTO, for example, has launched a major startup competition. The WWF in Africa launched an award for those protected areas that can show that they have alternative forms of income for their, apart from ecotourism, for their protected area management. So there's a lot of initiatives at the moment trying to find these different and new approaches. This is also some of the trends. I won't go into too much detail because I know we are a bit limited in time, but what you can see, what has been observed by Euromonitor and by the WTM in their latest research, is that the baby boomers are sort of decelerating in terms of their willingness to travel, because they are obviously the risk groups, but that we see more families and younger people that are actually eager to travel, and that the aspects that I was just mentioning with camping, eco-pods, rentals, and also more of a domestic travel and adventure travel, nature travel is going to be on the rise as we sort of come out of this pandemic. So some examples from what we could see in terms of protected areas responding to the crisis and adapting their offers. So first of all, we have really seen an increase in virtual offers. So this can be listening to sounds, joining virtual safaris, joining virtual stargazing tours, as you can see here in New Zealand. So this has really been a way for protected areas, not of course to reach the level of income that they need, but to continue to have promotion and yes, to reach out to their crowd of customers around the world. There have also been virtual reality wildlife games that have emerged. Websites that offer staycations or micro adventures have been really on the rise, where you can find sort of ways to dive into nature close to big European capitals, for example. But the problem that we have observed, and that some of our LT&C members have also reported to us, is that as there was more domestic tourism happening, or local tourism happening, and in those destinations where this was possible, there was also quite a few infrastructural challenges, because many of these visitors were concentrating on specific hotspots, which led to congestion in rural areas and in residential areas. Problems of sanitations, because many of these protected areas do not have the facilities, let's say the toilet facilities or the waste facilities, to cater for this very localized and pressurized influx on their hotspots. And then there was also questions about limited positive contribution to local economy, if people were sort of coming in their own camper vans, bringing their own food, but then sort of consuming the nature, but not really leaving so much positive return. Then, of course, you can also observe aspects such as erosion close to paths, if there's like really highly frequented hiking paths, for example, and then leading to conflicts of interest between different ecotourism and protected area stakeholders. So just one of the last points that I want to touch on before the end of our presentation is the aspects of carrying capacity and limits of acceptable change, because this is something that comes up again and again when we talk about ecotourism destinations and protected area management. And us here in our European destinations, we have in a way the luck that we have some very popular, let's say, ecotourism hotspots. This also brings the challenge for these destination managers to disperse the visitor flows and to manage them. So the carrying capacity model is a way to establish and manage the maximum number of people of visitors in a protected area at the same time, without them causing a destruction of the physical, economic, and socio-cultural environment, and also no unacceptable decrease in the quality of visitor satisfaction. So recently I was working on a carrying capacity study in an island state in Seychelles, and there we were really doing this exercise of gathering, first of all, as a first step of this carrying capacity study, all data that you could possibly imagine about the destination in terms of environmental, economic, and sociocultural impacts, so that you can really go into depth to understand what is the pressure that tourism is putting on utilities, on local transportation, on public sector, what kind of capacity is there in terms of bed stock, in terms of new developments that are coming on the market, to really understand the full picture of what the destination is able to take additionally, or where there's going to be a problem also when it comes to the way visitors, residents' day-to-day life, and also the visitors' perception of the destination. Once more, please. And the limits of acceptable change is actually very specifically for protected areas. So there you define the degree of change or impact that is tolerated for a protected area. So connected to that, you will introduce standards of quality. So you will, for example, do a visitor survey and find out that, let's say in a wilderness area, visitors are only or still happy if they see about 6 other groups on their journey through that wilderness area. So your ideal desired condition would be that they have a maximum of 5 encounters. So by setting yourself these kind of standards and by monitoring them, then you can sort of go through your limits of acceptable change model. This is an example from Bavaria. In terms of their response to an increase of visitors now during the summer month. And they have a sort of online live ticker, they call it in German, where they basically give their visitors constant information about the amount of traffic, about reminding them to take their waste, of keeping their distance, where can they go if certain areas are too congested. So this is a really nice and in a way easy response to sort of guide the visitor flows in the destination. I won't have too much time to go into this example anymore from Croatia. This is one of the sort of hotspots where you could really see that over the last 10 years, visitor numbers have increased tremendously, putting a lot of pressure on the national park of Plitvice. So one of the responses of the destination, you can go on to the next slide, please, has been to increase an online booking system. So this digital way for them gives a very specific, I think you can see it here, in terms of the online booking system, you choose the date of your arrival and you actually also choose the time. Because what they have realized is that they had a very, not only a seasonal high period, but also a timely high period. So sort of midday would be the most frequented time of the day in the national park. So by selling these online tickets and by limiting the amount of people that can actually enter the park and knowing always the kind of number of people that are in the park, they are able to disperse the visitors accordingly. Okay, this was a lot of information, I'm sorry, but as you can see, there were a lot of elements in the handbook that we tried to address and tried to cover. So we really hope that it can be useful for you and that you can, yes, address us with all the questions that you might have now through the session or also later via email. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina and Diana. We are going further and we have 1 or 2 questions. Please, anybody, give your questions whenever you like, write them down. And now I'm putting the word to Jan from Germany. And I would like to give him a chance to speak about his organization and experience in ranger development. Let's say Jan will tell us more. So Jan, it's your turn now.
Yeah, welcome from Germany. I just try to share my screen. One moment. It's not working. You can see a screen?
We can see a screen. The screen is working, but we can see much more that we would like to see. You can try to press F5.
Oh,
great.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go on.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So yeah, I'm speaking from Germany, from a nature park called Lüneburger Heide. It's the oldest nature park in Germany, and relating to Corona, we are completely overrun this year. It's really very dangerous for nature. We are so overcrowded, while in competing with guests the last 10 years with other regions, this year it's not ending. It's not ending. People everywhere, camper caravans everywhere. It's really very problematic this year. But to come to my topics, I just my main topics today, they are about the qualification standards for rangers and nature guides in Germany, and about cooperation between parks and private nature guides. And all in this field about benefits, problems, and best practice. Starting a little bit about me personally, I started in the age of 10 as a junior ranger. So just to show you, I come from the side of conservation. And this was my first and is still my greatest motivation for doing the job. And when I got a lot of experience as a warden in nature guiding right after school, I guided more than 100 tours in the Wadensee National Park. And all my life I was out with people. While studying, I worked as a tour guide for tour operators in the field of ecotourism worldwide. And this is still what I like to do most. Go out with people, share the views, sights and feeling, being out in the nature. And beyond all qualification for guides and rangers, it's always necessary that it comes from the heart and you really love to be out in the nature. And coming to the point, after university, I worked for WWF, and together with many stakeholders like Europark and the Federal Ministry of Education and other partners, we developed a job profile and training plan for rangers in Germany. And today, this is the occupational profile for more than 70% of all rangers which are working in the parks in Germany, and it's governmentally approved, this standard. And after the project, I worked in a park for the government of the state of Brandenburg, and I was the head of 130 rangers working in the national parks and biosphere reserves and nature parks in the state of Brandenburg. So this is the basis where I come from. And 15 years ago, when I returned back to my home park in the Lüneburger Heathland, because as you can mention, if you are the head of 130 rangers, you are sitting on the desk and you're not outside with people anymore so often. And so I changed back from the desk to being out in the nature. And today I'm working as a trainer. I'm a trainer for rangers and nature guides and forest educationalists. And my clients, they are park administrations, federal forest academies, and conservation academies. And when I have two businesses, I come to these points later, while I'm really working as a guide and a service for nature-related jobs in the region. So coming to the trainings, in Germany we have a certified ranger training, German-wide. It's federal approved, and these are 660 hours for training. So you see, this is a real profession. Yeah, and on the other hand, we have trainings for guides, and there is one main certificate in Germany, the certified nature guide, and many stakeholders stand behind this this training, like Europark, you know, like the German Rangers Association, the nature parks, and especially the head of this is the BANU, and the BANU is here is a group, is the organization of the state nature academies. We have a federal system in Germany. Matters of environment and education are federally organized, and so all states in Germany, like Bavaria or like Lower Saxony, where I come from, they have their own state nature academy, and they give the certificates to the people who join the trainings. And so I'm working for several of these academies German-wide to do this trainings. I've trained more than 300 of these nature guides, and so this is really this is really the main training and certificate for guides in Germany. Why this certification is necessary? It makes sure that the nature guides, for example, they know about the goals and the regulations in the parks they are working, and they have a high quality standard in doing their tours. On the other hand, so you see 70 hours, that's not very much in time. They have to learn about the topics, but it's a basic. So this certificate is valid for 5 years, and in this time you have to do 8 hours of further training each year. You have to receive supervision, and if everything is working well, you can prolong the certificate after the 5 years. For my park, I can say we now have about 80 qualified guides with this certificate, and but this is normal. Only a third of them is really working in the field in the end. Yeah, because you have to, the groups have to be satisfied. You check yourself if it's fitting into your business you're running, where you're living from, and so many people do it freelance, have another job and guide on the weekend, or there are only a few of them really doing it full time. I come to this aspect later. On the other hand, we have the certified forest educationalists. This is managed by the state forest departments. They are mainly trained to go out with children, school classes out in the forest, and do their environmental education programs. And you need this certificate if you want to offer tours or guiding in the state forests. Yeah. Okay. And if you look at the regions, it's always a field with many stakeholders working together. The certification of a certified guides, it's always a training in a region, and there's always a partner mostly the park administration and the academy. Partly the tourist organizations are working in. So these three partners, they give the certificate in the end of the training. And working together, it's always very diverse, because if you have a national park, you mostly have a great administration, many park rangers, and if you are in a nature park, you have a low-level administration. Very often you have no park rangers, and so the influence of the park is to the tourist situation, and in the field, working together with the guides, it's differing very much. But my experience is that if they work together properly and cooperative, the region will get a lot of benefits out of it. And yeah, so maybe I come to that point later on. So I told you, in one field I'm a trainer today, on the other field I have a business as a guide, and I'm always also offering other services related to nature conservation and tourism. And I'm working together on the border of our park with 2 employees and 3 freelance workers. We offer about 100 event days per year. And we are not only guides, and this is the new thing in this concept. We are private, but we are offering all the services rangers are offering. So we do environmental trainings, guiding of tourists, and we are working in the maintenance of hiking, biking, horse riding, Nordic walking trails, and we support and document landscape management projects, mostly in winter time. We are involved in monitoring and mapping of endangered animal and plant species. So we have a wide range of fields, and this is really necessary, because my experience is that guides could not make a living out of being a guide all over the year, because you have a season, mostly half year, where the guests are in the region, and the other time of the year, what can you do? Where can you make your living off and get the money to make the living of you and your family? And as you see here, nearly half of it is relating to guiding, tourism, environmental education. And the other part is related to doing services for the parks, for the touristic infrastructures, and for other for the communities with nature-related services. Sorry. Yeah, and so this is a new, because my experience is, if you try only to live from guiding, it's very hard, and especially good and young people, they see living with guiding is very hard, and if they get another job offer in another region, they are going away. The good people don't stay in the region, and so we develop a program to make the living all year round. And there are several benefits doing these things for the parks or the communities. Sometimes these are projects financed by the EU, and they are not allowed to do it with their own staff. So they need partners to realize the projects. And so both parks and private service businesses are working closely together like we do. And so I have here some statements from the head of our park administration. She says activities of Regio-Ranger do promote the sustainable development and tourism in our park. We recommend this concept to our regions. And we have a statement from our tourist department. We are convinced that other destinations will benefit from Regio-Ranger too, not only in relation to marketing and the variety of the programs, but also in the field of developing a sustainable tourism and protecting nature as an attractive resource for tourism. So we are working closely together with these partners, and we all see we have benefits of it. And so this led to a new project we had called Regio-Ranger. We set this concept in our nature park, working together with park administration, local tourism, and the private guides and service providers is working so successful that we try to export it to other regions. And for this concept, we won the prizes of sustainability in our state of Lower Saxony, Tourism with Future, and this was the start for Regio-Ranger. What's about Regio-Ranger? We see we have a lot of qualified people, like having this training and certificates I spoke about, but there is a lack in training for building up a startup, a business around. Yeah, and so we tried to help these people to build up own businesses in the regions, working together like Regio-Ranger is doing it in our park, in other regions. And so this is the Regio-Ranger business concept, and there are 10 training modules, and one says what is about working in nature-related services and guiding, what opportunities you have. It's the first step, and then this is all about startup, about doing business plans, acquiring money, tax-related things, insurances. What do you need if you want to build up a business? And then there are several modules about product development. What can you develop for environmental education programs and guiding? What can you do? What can you ever offer? Where are the groups that are coming to you? Where you get income out of the groups and your offers? And these also for the other services that can be offered, like maintenance of tourist infrastructure. Who is managing it in your region? Where you can help, where you can develop new projects, and like in biotope and species protection, where can you help? Who is giving money for doing projects in that field, and so on. You can see this in your script and in the presentation. And then there is a big module about marketing, and this is really in this guide trainings. you don't have anything about marketing. You just you learn how to guide and all this thing. You learn about nature, and you have a training in this field. But after you get the certificate, you're sitting at home and you're waiting for groups and people to share and go out with them, and they are not coming. So you have to do marketing at your own, for your own business, and in a network with all the stakeholders in the region. Yeah, it's all about how to calculate prices and get to the market and get groups, and which are the best groups which are fitting to your programs, and all this. Yeah, it's also about merchandising and sponsoring, working together, getting money, because especially the first 3 years, they are very hard for someone who is starting up in this field, because people must learn that you are there and offering good programs, and this needs time, and where you need help. You need help from partners from tourism and for foundations or other money. Otherwise, it would be very, very hard. And after 3 years, you can do it. Yeah. This is all about networking and coming together with the partners in the region, so that everything gets a benefit out of your work, and you out of the work of the others, and the region will be the benefiter of all of this. Yeah, so far I hope I've given you an impression about my work and the projects we are doing about training and doing concepts for the parks and the regions to bring it together, and you're welcome with your questions. Hello?
Thank you, Jan, for your presentation.
Okay.
Everything is fine, just I'm a bit slow today.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and so far I can't see any important questions. Maybe I would like to, rád by som vyzval všetkých zúčastnených. Nech sa páči, ak máte záujem spýtať sa nejaké detaily k prezentáciám, môžete položiť otázky. Vyzerá, že žiadne otázky zatiaľ nie sú.
Počuješ ma, Tomáš?
Áno,
tu je Zuzka Kaníková hovorí. A ja som nejako, neviem sa tam na tie open questions, na tie questions, ale každopádne mám otázku, alebo možno takú prosbu na pána Brockmana, že či si vie predstaviť nejakú spoluprácu s Asociáciou prírodného turizmu, lebo naozaj to vyzerá veľmi inšpiratívne a veľmi prakticky. Ako sme videli tie modely, tak skôr to nie je možno otázka obsahová, ale skôr taká prosba alebo výzva na spoluprácu.
Yeah, sure. I'm working for some organizations like the German Ranger Association and ENEA. It's an European Environmental Education agency, and we did projects together in other countries too. We have partnerships, and this is the one field where we do projects with partners. And on the other hand, yes, I'm working freelance, yeah, as a trainer, and if I can share or help. I do it in greater projects, or just specifically as my single person, as my business and my opportunities I can offer as a trainer, or giving impressions of projects and experience, bringing together parks and regions to work together in this field of guiding and offering services around the parks.
Ďakujem pekne. Je tu otázočka. Certifikáty, ktoré vydávate s prievodcom, majú platnosť v rámci celého Nemecka, alebo sú nejako regionálne obmedzené?
The concept is all over Germany. In all states, the nature conservation academies are offering this certificates, but it's always, you only get a certificate for a special region. And if you move to another region, maybe from Bavaria to the Wadden Sea, and then you don't have to do the whole training, you just have to do the regional block again. And then you are also a certified guide for the region Wadden Sea. Yeah, it's always related to a region. So, yeah.
Otázka sa týka hlavne toho, že Slovensko je relatívne malá krajina a je tu otázka, že či odporúčate alebo čo navrhujete v prípade Slovenska, či by to malo byť nejako limitované, respektíve či tie limity sú dané povedzme špecifikami danej lokality, alebo čo vlastne spôsobuje, alebo čo zapríčinuje, že ten certifikát platí povedzme niekde v Bavorsku a niekde pri mori už nie. V kontexte toho, že Slovensko je malá krajina a v ideálnom prípade asi u nás by bolo dobre, keby ten certifikát bol.
Yeah, and it's just the regional aspect you have to do new. If you once are a certified guide and you go to another region, you only have to do the local block, because nature is different in every region, and the historical background which the countryside is related to man and nature, it's different in every region, and maybe the different types of biotopes and cultural background differs more in a large country like Germany than in your country. So you have to decide if you can do a certificate for which includes all type of biodiversity you have in your country, but you only have the 70 hours, and if you are finished, you have to know about your region. Yeah.
Je tu otázočka, či sa v Nemecku stretávate s slovenskými turistami, respektíve či Slováci majú záujem o prácu rangerov v Nemecku.
Yeah, I'm working for I'm the founder of the German Ranger Association 25 years ago. It's a member of the International Ranger Federation, and we have many projects with other countries where we are working together. We have once a year a huge ranger meeting with more than 100 rangers from Germany, and there are also rangers coming from our border countries like Switzerland, Austria, and Czechia. And also people from Slovak are welcome. You can find it on our website. Let's call it Bundesverband naturwacht.de. I can write it down somewhere, and where we can think about partnerships.
Ďakujem pekne. Je to zo pár ďalších otázok. Jedna je priamo v nemčine. Pokiaľ si, Jan, otvoríš question and answer button, you can read, môžeš si tam prečítať otázku v nemčine. Aj dám prečítať ju Diana.
It's a thank you.
Yes, here. Okay. Can you see it? Yeah, I see it now. Yes. It's the German written one is a statement, not a question. I'm thankful for that. But
dobre, pokiaľ je to len nejaká pripomienka, ja mám ešte jednu otázku. Rád by som vedel, máte tam ten tréningový modul pre trénovanie sprievodcov, ktorý vyzerá byť veľmi komplexný. Áno, už bolo naznačené, že teda 3 roky môže trvať, kým ten človek sa ujme na trhu. Máte aj nejakú spätnú väzbu, aké je percento úspešnosti ľudí, ktorí u vás prejdú tým kurzom? Ako často sa reálne teda aj zamestnajú, alebo ako často poskytujú aj služby rangerov v rámci Nemecka alebo niekde inde?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, it's you have to divide it. The one field is the situation becoming a state ranger, after the qualification, and the other is building up a new business. The situation to becoming a state ranger is very comfortable in the moment, but there are several open jobs. Building up a business, as I told you, with the guides who do the certificate. I see it from my region. We have about 80 certified guides, and I think about 1/3 of them is really active working. Some and most of them are part-time. They have another job and do guidings in the season or on the weekends, and maybe it's 5 to 10% who did a greater income out of it and try to get full employment out of it. Yeah.
Dobre, ja tu nemám žiadne ďalšie otázky. Ale stále tu mám k dispozícii aj Dianu s Ninou, preto ak máte niekto otázočku na predchádzajúcu prezentáciu, nech sa páči, dajte nám vedieť.
Okay, so thank you very much.
Ďakujeme, Jan, veľmi pekne. Vyzerá, že sme vyčerpali záujem o položenie otázky. V prípade, že prídu nejaké ďalšie otázky alebo vás niečo ďalšie napadne, nech sa páči, kľudne ich napíšte. Buď ich skúsime odpovedať ešte v rámci tejto diskusie, ktorú predbežne uzatváram. A ak sa ešte nejaké otázočky objavia, môžeme ich zodpovedať. A všetkých vás pozývam sledovať aj ďalšiu sekciu, ktorá sa bude venovať téme, ako to v súčasnosti vyzerá s prírodným turizmom na Slovensku, čo sa už udialo, čo sa zrovna deje a čo plánujeme, že by sa malo diať v budúcnosti. Tak v tomto momente ďakujem Janovi, ďakujem Diane aj Nine, takisto aj Andrejovi, ktorý nás už opustil, aj všetkým, ktorí sa dneska zúčastňujú ako poslucháči, a budeme sa počuť najneskôr 11:30. Prajem všetkým zatiaľ príjemnú prestávku.
bin schon drin hier. Man sieht, wer da sonst ist. Ist da gerade Pause? Ich höre jetzt nichts.
Ich glaube, dein Mikrofon ist an.
Wie? Wo sieht man das?
Hier, weil es gemutet ist.
Peter, hello. Can you hear me? We're just on the break, coffee break.
Okay.
So back in 5 minutes.
We are just here in a car in a Vida area and have a good telephone connection. It seems to function.
Perfect. Happy to have you join us. So we will be back in 5 minutes.
Okay. So did everything went well so far? Okay.